my friends be like, so you just not gonna post? And I'm like, I hate Facebook. It's such a passion.
Thank you all for coming out to Living Color this evening, brought to you by the Mahogany Project. So, In Living Color touches on the interdynamics of like living at the intersection of being Black and gay or queer or lesbian or bisexual or trans, and really trying to understand how we truly interact with family and friends and social settings. And being that this is the summer and there's so many cookouts going on and parties and, well, crawfish season is over, but I mean, it still wouldn't hurt, but you know, crawfish season and everything, this is really a conversation about how we exist with our own people and the traumas that sometimes is thrust upon us and sometimes the trauma that we invite upon ourselves. Yeah, so I'm just really looking, I've been really excited about this ever since the last dialogue that we did in May, entitled What's to Be Scared Of. So let's really like jump right into it. So I grew up in Houston, Texas, and I come from a family that is like missionary Baptist Christian. That's a lot, right? You know, a lot of Black people missionary Baptist Christian, that's a lot. But my family, I can say honestly, there was times where there was a fear or certain things that was said about being gay or being anything other than Southern Baptist Christian straight. There was a lot that was said about that. But at the same time, I come from a very loving family, a big family. Actually, on both sides of my family. My dad's side of the family has a really, really big family. My mom's side of the family has a really, really big family. But we always spent time with our family, whether it was the family that was in Alabama or the family in Houston. We would always have like a lot of family functions. And believe it or not, I was always the life of family functions. I probably should say this on live, that I was allowed to like bartend for family functions before the legal age to drink. I didn't say I drank anything, I just said I was allowed to bartend, right? Okay, so we would really have like a really, really great time. But as I got older, I started to isolate myself from a lot of family functions based on how I identify, how I perceive things would be, and how I perceive people would treat me during these family functions. And so that's kind of how we got here today. So actually, Saturday was my mom's 53rd birthday party. And so my family just moved to the country, y'all, and I hate driving out there. I hate it with a passion. I hate it. But everyone was really excited to see me because I do not attend a lot of family functions because sometimes I do close myself off because of the way that I feel that people will view me or the things that people might say. And to be honest, there has never been a time where someone has said anything directly to me that offended me. But it's just like, in Black families, we know it's always the quiet whispers. And whenever we have like social gatherings as families, we know like that's where all of the gossiping take place and things like that. So it's kind of like when you put yourself into that space, it's kind of like putting yourself on display, or like you're just giving people just like a visual aid to like, yeah, there you go, look at him, you know, girl, you know, he got a boyfriend, you know, his mom, like, you know, it's like this whole thing that we encounter. And so it's, for me, I kind of like isolated myself from family functions to try not to have that happen to me. But my family is very loving of me. They accept me, and some of my friends, I'm gonna say some of my friends, they are accepting of my friends a lot of times. Unless they come and they just do tuition. I don't think it has anything to do with them being gay. Like oftentimes, like people they just do too much in general. They just do too much. But yeah, I isolate myself sometimes, and not just in family functions, from friend functions as well. Friends will call me and be like, "There's such and such going on." I'm like, "Oh my God, girl, that sounds so nice." I have plans later, and it's just I don't want to really be in that space because I'm not sure how things would turn out or where I'm at in my life or how I will be perceived as a person. or as trans, or at the intersection of being black, or as a person who identifies as trans and don't really present as trans all the time. There's a lot that comes with that, and there's a lot of people that has perceptions around that. So I just want to hear a little bit from you guys about some of the things that you face, or some of you guys' experiences around family functions and friends functions, if that makes sense. So before we get started, please tell the people a little bit about yourself. I kind of jump right in. My name is Bernice. Yes, I'm the founder and executive director of the Mahogany Project. So yeah, tell people a little bit about yourselves.
Hello, my name is Candace Thornton. I recently became the Holistic and Cultural Wellness Ambassador for the Mahogany Project. Outside of that, I am a holistic wellness advocate, so I have a brand called Emanate Beauty. I'm a makeup artist, and so I use makeup artistry and meditation to teach people self-awareness and how to overcome like their mental health challenges in a nutshell. I identify as queer. My pronouns are she, her. I don't mind they, but typically she is fine. I mean, I've been queer my whole life, so yeah, like real non-conforming. For me, queer is beyond sexuality. It's just like I genuinely march to my own drum, and it causes some confusion for people who are very like traditional. I was outed when I was like, 22-ish, in the process of divorcing my at the time wife. And so that was, I guess, the first time that I had to deal with family interactions and the whispers, as you say, because my solution was, I knew I liked being with women. I couldn't do it in Georgia, so I moved my hot ass to Houston so I could live my greatest dykey life. Like, that's what I wanted to do, and I did it. It was very liberating for me to be able to walk in spaces, to hold hands with women, to be publicly affectionate, for it to be known in all spheres of my life in this city that, oh yeah, she's queer, it wasn't a thing. But with that experience of going through that divorce, that was the first time that I had to say to my parents, like, come on now, y'all. I ain't never brought a man home for real. Like, are you really surprised about this? And as loving as I would like to say that my family is, there is a lot of just misinformation and non-acceptance. I think my dad made peace with it in his own way first, because as he likes to say, well, I don't really care what you like. You know, it's not an issue. But that statement does not necessarily align with my memories growing up, which was, I knew very early on that I was raised to be a sanctified Christian, somebody's wife and mother. You know what I'm saying? One of the things you talked about is the different intersectionalities, and I identify as queer, but I also recognize that I am feminine presenting, whatever that means. You know what I'm saying? Like when people see me, they assume that I like men, and it's just like, where did you get that from? But okay, at least that's my perception. I know you'll say something else about that. Yes. But in those kind of intersections, for me, occupying spaces and honoring all aspects of who I am has been a little bit challenging. Not so much here in Houston, but like I said, I hid a lot of who I was. I wasn't really out completely until I moved here to this city. And so for me, it was a matter of just avoiding the whispers, the questions. Even now when I go home, I can always see when my relatives will just, you're just so pretty. When are you gonna be a wife? And I'm like, if you only knew I've been a wife. You know what I'm saying? It has been challenging. And my mom made a statement that, you know, my marriage wasn't a real marriage because I married a woman. So, you know, yeah, that was like a play marriage. But you don't really know what it means to be a wife. And then so, in having those interactions and those memories, for me, in this season of my life, I'm just really committed to showing up authentically and not trying to avoid the discomfort that I think will be there if I say like, no, like this isn't a phase, it's not changing, I like what I like when I like it, and it's not for you to understand. That's really what this season is looking like.
Okay. So I'm AE Farnsworth. I recently taken on director.
Yeah, she don't.
Okay, well, hold it out to the side.
Why are you
It
like
can be a
this?
bit triggering, I understand.
Yes, you know, it's very threatening. It's close to my vest.
Just hold it out to the side. So.
It's like swimming close to my head. But now I'm AE Farnsworth. I have taken on being the director of programs for the Mahogany Project. I grew up in San Francisco. I was born and raised there. And, you know, when you say that, you come to the assumption like, oh, no. I grew up in a Catholic primitive Baptist household. So on third and fourth Sundays, we washed feet in line. And on first and second Sundays, we kneeled to a clicker. So I had a very interesting plaid skirt upbringing. Yeah, it was
Yes.
It was a whole jumper with buttons, little lapels that were circular, no ties, sort of. But I thought that when I started to notice women, that it wouldn't be a big deal. But I was excommunicated, kicked out of everything. I was not even allowed to attend functions dressed a certain kind of way. So when the opportunity knocked for me to leave, which was like 15 when I graduated high school, I jumped the deuce. I went to San Francisco State and went all over the place, just getting, doing whatever I felt like doing. I didn't really ever have the family function issue. My closer family, mom, dad, grandma, was real anti whatever I was doing, but the rest of my cousins were just like, oh, okay, because we've known this since you were about 8. Dude, I'm glad you stopped trying to come places in shoes that you can't walk in. Like, it's real ridiculous. You cannot play basketball or dominoes in acrylics. It just doesn't work. Like, you gotta give that up. Like, it's not real. And when I came down here, aside from the queer factor, I cut off about 22 inches of my own hair. And from that, it was just like, okay, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. So I've not really had too many like negative interactions at like family functions and things like that. I moved out of state just because I come from one of those families. Like San Francisco is much smaller. You know, Houston is huge, it's tiny. San Francisco is worse. It was only 7 miles in a square. So to say that everybody knows everybody is a gross understatement. And I have a very well-known last name. So everywhere I went, it was, oh, you're such and such. And I just really got sick of it. I couldn't do anything, not academically, not publicly, not privately, without it being on my kitchen table by the time I got home. So I told me, they saw you over there with them again. I'm just like, like, they is us, you know what I'm saying? Like, you were out somewhere. I'm not. So I moved out of state. So I definitely don't have that problem. When I show up, everybody's glad to see me because you don't see me for about 48 hours in a 2 to 5 year span. So you can get it while you can. And that's pretty much my deal with that. I understand that it can be difficult. I've definitely been in rooms and gotten those looks. But the Leo in me is much, I'll stop and pause for a second. You know, shift on my feet, let you time to get your camera ready to take a picture. I don't care. And as far as like being alienated, like when it comes to intersections, like I present a certain kind of way, but I'm incredibly feminine in private. I carried my own kids. I arch my own eyebrows. It's very serious, you know. You look, I have a whole bathroom ritual. Like people just be like, oh girl, I'm like, yeah, it's like, you know. tight around here. You can't be walking around with buckwheat in the headlock. You know, you gotta moisturize things. But I feel like because of the cross sections that I'm afforded, because you know I go get a fresh line and go to Gymboree, and people looking real lost. But yeah, no, I made those, both of them, and they're going to play with the blocks too. So it's just like I don't negotiate space. I'm just there, and if you don't like it, you can move. It's fine. I don't move that easily, so I'm pretty cool with the functions.
And see, that's why we're here, because, you know, understanding the duality in things. Not everybody's family has issues or isolate them or put them out, and that's why I wanted to be very candid and open about sometimes about me isolating myself from family functions, because that's a reality. We do sometimes isolate ourselves. Even going back to, like I was talking about on Saturday, being my mom's birthday party. So I wore a crop top.
Yes.
Yes. I wore this neon lime green crop top to the function. It wasn't like my main outfit for the function. It was more like, this is my pre-game setup. You know, it's okay to wear something on this outfit as we get ready type deal. So I wore this for two reasons, right? One, it was hot because we're in Texas. And two, to a degree, I wanted to test my dad's comfortability with me wearing a crop top, okay? I knew my mom was gonna have something to say, but hers was more so gonna be like, you just got your stomach out. And then I can deal with that, because, you know, you say something real smart, she's like, and you going on. But I really wanted to test my dad's comfortability with me wearing a crop top. So I walked in the house, and the first person I can see from the garage is my dad in the kitchen, like cutting up the meat and stuff for the birthday party. So I have to walk past him, like by the door, through the closet area where you put your coats and stuff, through the kitchen, through the living room. So I have to pass him. So I walk right into the house, and I'm like, hey everybody, you know, walk right on in. The first one, I'm not sure if he saw me in the crop top when I passed him or when my mom said something. So, in my mom making a statement of, just how your stomach out, I turn around and my dad he has this look on his face, and it's not, I watch a lot of y'all things, so I'm just gonna call it thing, okay? You know, I was gonna try to make it real cute, okay? But he really has a look of disgust on his face, like, yeah, crop top, okay? So, I'm comfortable as hell in the crop top. Mind you, I done been to Costco, I done been to like H-E-B, Kroger, all these places before, got gas, all this before making it to the house in the crop top. So I am, at this point, bitch, I am comfortable in the crop top, okay? So I see the look on his face, and I sit down at the table to talk to her mom, because I don't really know what we was talking about, but I know the look on his face, and she goes, so you just really wearing crop tops now? And I'm like, yeah, girl, but if this is a problem, I can go home. Because listen, the safe space me to be on earth is my house. I would leave anywhere to go home, okay? Like, anywhere. And so I'm like, if it's a problem with me in a crop top, I will go home. Because I got 4 more in the house on the rack, and I plan on wearing them too, okay? I actually ordered another one, and it came yesterday, and I can't wait to wear it on Saturday, okay? But it was really one of those things, like, I want to start engaging my family more and being around my family, because the truth is, when growing up, I was always around my family. I was always around my cousins, and like 6 of my cousins went to school together, like elementary, high school, middle school. Hell, me, my sister, a couple of my cousins, hell, we went to college together. So it's like I was always around my family. The whole time I went to high school, my grandmother drove us to school every morning, and I probably would see my grandmother 5 days out of a week, okay? So I was used to being around and seeing my family. It really wasn't until I got aware of who I was that it really became an issue, and I can't say that the issue is more so with them or if the issue is more so with me, but I'm starting to think that the issue is more so with me because I isolate myself from these situations. So going back to the crop top was my way of being comfortable with my family, seeing how my family would perceive me in this crop top, because the crop top is still something that is like, it only supposed to be feminine, but like if you look at the late 80s, early 90s, most of the people that you saw in crop tops were males. Like, Will came running through the house, in a crop top. Like, just because it said Howard on it, it didn't mean it wasn't a crop top, okay? It was still a crop top. So I really wanted to test that comfortability. But that was the really thing that I experienced around it, was like my dad, look of disgust on his face. He didn't say anything about it. My mom just said, "Did you got your stomach out?" And I was like, "Girl, yes," moving right along. But I went and changed from that, okay, to a two-piece, a leopard print short set, okay? And so everybody in the house like really loved the short set. So it's like my clothes was really kind of a way of me testing my family comfortability and seeing like, okay, is there really going to be an issue? Because there is certain things that you can do around your family they have an issue with. Yeah, they may have an issue with the way you talk, the way you color your hair, the way that you dress. I remember particularly and this is crazy, one Father's Day, I had like black nail polish on my toes, and my dad was like, either if you're going to engage with the family around Father's Day, then you need to go take the nail polish off of your toes. So my thing was like, fuck Father's Day altogether. I'm not going to take the nail polish off my toes. I'm going to the kitchen, make me some food, and I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Like, I go in the room, I got Netflix, Hulu, I got all I need when everybody bounces. I'm good. I'm not worried about this. So that was really my way of seeing like how far my dad had come in his level of comfortability. Outside of that, I should say that I remember a while back we did a fundraiser for the Miami Project at Hamburger Mary's, and my dad did show up to Hamburger Mary's, and that was even a shock to me, even though they left early. But it was my way of really testing my family's comfortability, because if I'm really going to occupy that space, and I want to be in that space, and I want to start attending more family functions and regain my presence, within my family, I need to understand the family dynamic of where the family is now and how the family perceives gay people, black people, queer people, trans people, because in essence this is me, right? And I don't want to show up in a space and feel like I can only bring part of me because the family is not willing to accept the rest of me. But outside of my family, I have a whole secondary family that's willing to accept every part of me. And I feel like we sometimes have to hold our biological family accountable. If we're going to occupy that space, if we're going to be around them, then we shouldn't have to sugarcoat who we are and or hide parts of us or pieces of us or things like that. If we're going to truly fit into these spaces, we should be celebrated and not tolerated. I have a very big thing about being tolerated. So I want to make sure if I'm going to start showing up in these spaces more, engaging my family, going back on family functions. Believe it or not, my family do a lot of family functions together. Just in just June 22nd, for my grandmother's birthday, who passed maybe about 6 years ago, we all together went to Sudan in New Bronxville. And I didn't go. I was only the few people in the main, I'm saying truthfully, I think I was the only person within the main part of the family that did not go. And it shouldn't have to be like that, right? You know what I'm saying? I shouldn't have to isolate myself because of the way that people are going to perceive me, or isolate myself because I want to take my boyfriend and then can't because someone may say something that triggers him or make us feel like we're unwanted, and now we have to still spend the rest of the weekend or a vacation with people who are simply tolerating us. So going into something Candace said, I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing more about this, because I didn't know that you were married, and I'm not saying that you got to tell me everything about you, because I'm not under this that pains me. But at any time, like, were you engaged, like, did you and your wife at the time, like, do like family functions or family engagement and things like that? And if so, how was the dynamic around that? Was the family like accepting? Were they more so just tolerant, or was it have to be one of those things? So, this is my friend, or this is my roommate. Because sometimes that's how we have to play it off, so that there's no dynamic or no issue. Or we often told, if anybody asks you, say that's your roommate, or that's your friend. That happens too. How was that, if you don't mind sharing?
So I met my ex-wife in school. And I have to laugh at the universe because my parents sent me to an all-women's college, and I don't know what you thought was going to happen from that, but at the end of the day, I met my ex-wife there, and we came from different backgrounds but similar experiences. So like, her mother had very strong feelings about homosexuality, and so for a very long time, I feel like she was, I guess, trying not to embrace that aspect of her because it was such a point of contention for her mother. My experience, although different, we had the same sentiment, like, we not about to be out here super gay, like, you know what I'm saying? We love each other, it's our business, but I definitely recognize, like, when we were together for almost 2 years, before we got engaged. Our engagement was real quick, and we eloped, went to Florida to get married, because this was before you could be married here in the States. So we eloped, went to Florida, and coming back to Houston, like I said, we just kind of had both distanced ourselves from our families because we both kind of felt like, I'm just not about to have these arguments with y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know how I feel about you, I know how I feel about what it is that I want to accomplish, and it's just, I'm real tired of apologizing for what you think is wrong with me. And so from that, we ended up kind of creating our own network of people, which became something like family, as much as it could be. But even with that, I definitely, looking back, can see where she had embraced what it meant to be married a little bit differently than I did. Like, she was comfortable walking into spaces and saying that this is my wife. And I was kind of just like, hey, this is, and it was always like a murmur, you know what I'm saying? So I really had to come into my own and being comfortable saying like, I got a whole wife, and not cringing and waiting for somebody to be like, really? You're a dyke? You gay? You this? Because I felt like it was another way to force me into identifying with labels that made people feel comfortable or informed as to how to deal with me. Like, even now I say queer because who I'm with is not really anybody's business. And if you need to know who it is that I sleep with to determine how you're able to engage with me, you're not my kind of people anyway. So I'm not too big on labels in general. But yeah, that was, we had to kind of find our own circles. And I think now, like I said, I'm divorced and have been for a little while, but being comfortable in speaking authentically and truthfully and not being afraid of, okay, well, what is this gonna look like if I say this? It is what it is. I want people around that embrace me authentically, and it not have to be such a mental process in explaining why and how. That's where I'm at.
You were talking about your crop top.
Yeah.
I typically wear a lot of neckties all the time, long ones. The color coordinate with my outfits and socks quite nicely. And that's a problem because my family has no filter and I have children. So I have walked into my grandmother's house and had my mother or grandmother or aunts try to explain to my son that I'm confused about what kind of clothes I'm supposed to wear. But it was funny. It was funny because the last major family function I was at was a family reunion, and it was a big one because you see my cousin Pearlie had passed. Come on, Pearlie. And all her kids was in town from Oklahoma, so it was way more people at the reunion than we usually was. But you don't ever see that. You don't see that side of the family. People gonna come. So it was about 400 people at the reunion. And I'm coming from out of town. I pulled up the day before, fresh. I had been at the barber shop. I rented a car. I wasn't riding with nobody. I was not going to be tailored. Me and them two people I made was all color coordinated to the nines. And I had a tie on. And my grandmother wanted to argue with me. You can't be out here looking like this. Half of these people ain't seen you since you was a kid. It was so funny, like I was so amused, but my grandmother's older, it's like you don't want to laugh in your grandmother's face. So I was trying to keep it together, and my cousin Colleen came and she said, Margie, this is the prettiest bulldog I've ever seen in my life. If she wants to come in here,
Oh my God.
with her and these pretty yellow babies, and they all look so nice, she just let them be. And I cracked up laughing. But I have just concluded, like, people are going to process you however they process you. And you kind of have to, like, let people love you on the level that they're at. Because it's like my grandmother talking mild shit about me wearing clothes, but she's still gonna fix me a plate, though. I still have a key to her house. She still writes me letters. You know what I mean? Sending me pictures of tomato vines. You know what I'm saying? She knows what I look like when I pull up. She gonna walk off and shake her head, but I'm not gonna change my clothes for her. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point in that because I can't. There are people looking at me all the time, and I can't teach either one of them. Like, when you go here, you have to do this, or when you go here, you have to do this. Like, just walk in there and own it. If you're gonna be a leopard, make sure your spots is tight. You know what I mean? That they're not all sloppy and all over the place, and you be the most sharp leopard in the room, and that's how you do that. That just is what it is. But it's very funny how simple garments of clothing can change the whole temperature in a room right quick.
Yeah. I want to talk about that a little bit more because it's like a combination of the crop top and the bow tie. For me, being like, not bow tie, necktie, pardon me. So part of like how I was raised religiously was like very conservative, so makeup was a no-go, right? And here I am, a home makeup artist. And so my dad's thing is, don't wear red lipstick. Just don't. You're sending the wrong message. Yes. You look like a da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so again, when it comes into entering these spaces, and with all the intersections that I have, I love makeup. I love color. Like, just it makes me so happy to be able to express aspects of myself creatively. But even in something as simple as a lipstick, I know that when I come around, because my father's a politician, I forgot to mention that. So yeah, he's like real images, everything, and here I come with piercings and red lipstick, and if it's a good day, some fishnet stockings. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I don't have them kind of hang-ups, but for me, one thing that I'm embracing more and more every day is that it's not just about what or how I define my sexuality. It's just the fact that I am allowed to express it however it wants to come out. So if that means I want to wear something that's sassy, if that means I want to wear something that's revealing, if that means I want to wear something that's colorful and accentuates a part of myself that has been considered inappropriate, then I'm going to do that. And so when you were talking about the crop top, I was like, dang, how would Daddy act if I came around in a crop top? We have different identifications, but it's still the same thing. Like, I can see the look of, I didn't raise you like this. And am I gonna freeze in that and be like, you're right, let me go cover up? So yeah, I was really glad that you brought that up, and I was glad that you talked about how if you're gonna be a leopard, just make sure your spots are tight, because I think that is such a critical piece when we're talking about wellness and being able to show up as ourselves, whatever your identifications are. Like, own that. So yeah.
I think a lot of times our personality and sexuality get caught up in the same, right? Because sometimes your style of dress or the way that you cut your hair or maybe the way that you enunciate things or your mannerisms or things like that has nothing to do with your sexuality and have everything to do with your personality. And sometimes people combine the two. Unknowingly and maybe even a little bit unintentionally.
Yes.
And it's like if you wear pink hair because your personality is just loud and bright and pink says that to you, then your sexuality gets sucked up into pink hair because it's being like, only people who wear pink hair are gay people,
Right.
or queer people, or it becomes a label versus it's just your personality. Or if you have color contacts, it's not the fact that you found them appealing. You just, you want to have blue eyes today. That wasn't enough for society or people in general. Then your context by definition means that you're gay or you're queer or you're a lesbian or things like that. And it has nothing to do with the two of them. And when you're saying that, growing up, I've always liked color, like colored clothes. I'm not a person. I had a lot of gray in my wardrobe growing up as well because of emotional issues, and gray is just like when you are imbalanced and you just really don't know how to feel about things. But once I got out of that, it was a lot of color, and I still wear a lot of colored clothes. But my colored clothes was an issue for a lot of people. How dare you be this loud and this okay with yourself, this size, you have colored hair, or you have, at the time, you be having locks and having long locks, and my locks are colored. How dare you have natural hair, and then my natural hair wasn't always upkept. How dare you have natural hair, and you don't upkeep it, and then you have the audacity to have a color. It becomes a multi-layered thing that people just really have an issue with. And I really think it really got sucked up into this being my sexuality and not my personality, if that makes a lot of sense. Like right now, having on a pink shirt, a pink and lime green shirt has nothing to do with pink and lime green shoes, has nothing to do with my sexuality, everything to do with my personality. But walking out here and going into a grocery store and someone identifying me as effeminate or what have you, then my clothes by definition has everything to do with my sexuality. And the reason because I'm gay or queer, then that's the reason why I thought the pink and lime green shirt was appealing. And we face a lot of that with family as well, family, friends. It's like if you do not conform to what's been the norm in the household or what has been passed down, from generation on generation, then it's something wrong with you. You need to be looked at. Maybe you should go and read the good book. It's never looked at as us being individuals or developing a personality or coming into your own. It has everything to do with your sexuality. And our sexuality has really nothing to do with us as people in its entirety. It's only a fraction of who we are. It's this one thing, inside of us, and it's not everything. But yeah, I would love to hear some of your input on that topic.
The hair, though, like that to me is the most ridiculous because girls cut their hair all the time. Like women, that is a notorious trait that women do all kind of outrageous things with their hair. And it took me a long time to really be able to just come out and like say out of my mouth. Like I felt hella confined to my hair growing up because it was long and it was pretty and you have light eyes and long hair and you have good hair. You should be happy. And I'm like, it doesn't do anything I want it to do. When you press it straight, it don't curl right. It won't stay braided. It's frilly. I got all this extra in the front. It was always annoying as hell. And when I cut my hair off, I cut it all off. I wasn't playing. Like, I got some scissors and just lost it. I cut off every curl in sight. And it was the most liberating moment in my life. Like, I felt like I'd never seen my face before. And then everybody's response was like, oh, well, you can't hide it now. It's like, who was hiding in the first damn place? Like, I was hiding. I came out here in San Francisco, the high is about 70. You come out here, and the humidity is on devil's sack. It's just like, you cannot breathe out here. And my hair was literally long enough where I could swing a ponytail. Like, I've been growing it my whole life. I never had more than an inch of haircut, and very carefully by meticulous women. So it was not, like, my hair was long as hell, and when I cut it off, I felt so free of it. Like, no, I'm not this girl, and I'm not going to wrap my hair every day and buy $30 a week worth of products to keep it from looking like I'm out here. Like, I'm just going to cut it off and figure that out. And I definitely agree with you. People, when you are openly queer, or let's just say openly non-straight and non-conforming, everything falls into the sexuality bucket. Like, I wear a size 13 men's shoe. I'm not wearing no pumps, even if I was a femme, where I'm gonna get them from? Who's making a size 15 stiletto that's realistically comfortable and affordable? Like, that's hella unrealistic. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that there's not people out here doing that, but that's stupid. Like, trying to buy shoes growing up and playing basketball is like, okay, you want me to put on cute shoes, but my feet are bigger than most men. So it's just like, what am I supposed to do with that but buy tennis shoes? I'm almost 6 feet tall. How am I supposed to walk in these heels? Like, can I just get some flats type situation? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be exposed that way. Like, moving in a lot of corporate circles, I don't care about my clothes. When my hair is long, I'll put on a skirt in a heartbeat, and people will be real devastated about it. I think it's hilarious. But I don't want to be identified by my clothing or my body type and how things fit me, which is why I wore men's clothes in the first place. Add the fact that I feel like I can put them together much better than a bunch of females' clothes. It always came back to, oh, well, you're gay, so no, it had nothing to do with it. Even if I was straight, I would still wear, like, Janet Jackson is just wonderful with her tie game is immaculate. And she's not gay. So, well, no, she's gay. Right. But still, I definitely agree with you, though. You lose, like, half of your identity when you're openly queer in the real world. The people that don't take the time to actually have a conversation with you, it's like, oh, 90% of yourself gets one to know, oh, you're gay.
So, it's like the holistic and cultural wellness ambassador. I want to talk about chakras and stuff like that. But the correlation between creativity and sexual energy, I think, is something that we ignore so much, and it's something that is important for us to look at, because your creative power, your sexual power, it lives in the same space. And so, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, and I don't want to make a blanketed statement, so let me be careful of how I say this, but I do believe that once you reach that point of being able to say, like, I'm non-conforming in whatever way that is, it is a liberation for you. And in liberating yourself, be it sexually or creatively, you are able to express more of yourself. And so the question that I had as you were talking is, because it's so often lumped together, like, oh, you just do that because you're gay, how many people are walking around not operating in their wholeness because they don't want to do something that looks gay? And it's like, it really does break my heart, because I'm like, yo, like, it's people who don't actually know who they are because the things that they actually like are considered something that they are afraid to be judged for. So yes, I'm really glad that you show up in leopard print and crop tops. Yes. And you in neckties. Because I think that that's the part where, okay, when you talk about the function of the Mahogany Project and really creating safe spaces for people to explore all that they are, yes, show up as yourself, whatever that means for you, and let's go from there. Like, let's see what happens.
And I think it's very important. You saying that I live in my apartment complex. I live by the pool, and like it's the summertime. My pool just been open for about a month now. But there's a lot of kids that participate at the pool every day. Swimming, things like that. And we were out at the pool, and it was a bunch of kids like, if you did this, you were gay. If you didn't do that, you was gay. So it was like, oh, everybody that's not in 6 feet of the pool, you gay. And so there was this little, like, I kid you not, like, this was really like what they were saying. And so it was this little kid, like, damn near about to drown, okay, in 6 feet, because he don't want to be labeled as gay, because he not in 6 feet with everybody else. So you about to fucking lose your life because of a label. And then you're not even old enough to even understand the label or the dynamics of the label. You and the people that you are hanging out with. So you're about to literally lose your life, okay, because of how a group of people are telling you how to identify because you're not in 6 feet at a pool. And I just think that was crazy. And I literally got up from the pool and left. Because I was like, I'm not just keep listening to these little kids who have no supervision. They out here on their own. Once again, we talked about mental health, to be picking your battles.
Right.
And so I wasn't supposed to educate a bunch of kids who were not old enough to process the information. I think most of the kids who were at the pool, I think they were under 13. The oldest may have been 13. The youngest may have been like 6. And it's like 15 of them at the pool. Okay? And it's like none of y'all are old enough to be watching nobody. You're bad enough old enough to be watching yourself, okay? And you about to let a little kid drown in the pool because he's scared to be labeled as gay, okay? And I just think that is like interesting. And clearly, you know that it's something that kids have picked up in family settings, or more than likely at family functions. We always hear people saying at family functions, stop acting like a little punk, or stop being gay, or, stop whining like a little girl. So, like, what's the difference in a male crying and, like, a woman crying? Is it supposed to be a little bit more bass? And in his tears, I don't understand like the concept of that, and things like that is kind of like how unknowingly and sometimes knowingly we can stigmatize or oppress a person at family functions, at friend functions, without even knowing. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember that having that said like a lot growing up and hearing that at different family reunions. Ain't gonna be no gay people in our family, and it kills me when you see when black people are together at functions and they say stuff like, ain't nobody like that in our family. Like, how do you know half of us don't even talk to each other? Like, some of y'all always show up here to get the family gossip. So, like, how do you know?
But you know what? Speaking about that, so I think that I am probably the first person in my immediate family to be openly out at this point. And it wasn't really by choice, it was by circumstance. But I have observed that I have a younger cousin. She's probably like 14, and she got a whole girlfriend. Like on social media, like she's out. And I wonder, because as I'm hearing the older generation say, well, we don't have nobody like that in our family. And I think back to certain aunties or uncles that you don't know who they were with or how they were,
like
you know
I
what I
said,
mean?
they always showed up with a family function with a friend. That was their friend.
Right. But it's like even beyond that, all stories are not my stories to tell for my family. So I'm trying to respect their autonomy as I discuss this. But you know, it's easy to say what we don't do. But again, if there were not labels that came with their own stigmas, what would genuinely make you happy? You know what I'm saying? You don't gotta call it queer or gay or what you don't have to call it what, you know what I'm saying? If you just existed in the ways that made you feel whole, I feel like a lot of people would have to make peace with the fact that it's not what they were told they had to be.
So earlier you shared with us that you have kids, 2 biological kids. How do you and your kids, because like you said, you guys are out here like yourselves, clearly y'all have y'all own family dynamic out here. So when it comes to like holidays and things like that, what does you guys family dynamic look like, and how do you teach your kids to be in family or relation with one another, if that makes sense?
I have family out here. I have cousins and things like that. I didn't grow up with them. I didn't meet them until I was an adult, but we're cool. And they met me as I am. And I've sat down with them and gone through these questions. When I met them, I didn't have any kids. And then I had one, and a few years later I had another. And old people, they just, well, just come talk to me, because I have an uncle in particular. He talks.
Talk about that uncle.
Yeah, he's cool as a fan, like, and he really means well, but he can be very aggressive in his approach to things. He don't have no filter at all. He just gonna say it straight out his mouth. So you look like my son, and you got children, and they look just like you. So break it down for me, cuz just come on, and then I pass you that cup of Crown, like just listen up and talk to me one time. And this is my thing. Like I say, just because you're a leopard doesn't mean you have to eat meat. And I knew I liked women real early. I was probably 11 or 12. I didn't say anything or act on it until I was about 19, but I knew. And my mannerisms definitely reflected that, but I always wanted kids. There was never a question in my mind more so of how I was going to get them here. But that's not even, it's not really that difficult to be realized. Quick conversation and but it is what it is. Like, I live a very free, non-conforming life. I take them, around my cousins. We are in ugly Christmas sweaters with ties on, or bow ties if my son wants one, and my daughter is the frilliest thing you can possibly imagine. And I'm sure it probably looks away, but that's just how it is. I pretty much allow them within cleanliness and grooming to do whatever they want to do. The other day, my daughter went to school. She had on little star tights and a Santa Claus hat with Easter dress on, and that's what she wanted to wear. I just didn't feel like arguing about it that morning, so I let her go to school like that. She's cute. She's smart. If you talk to her, she can articulate herself well. She's at her milestone, so she's 4. Are we really about to argue about if you want to wear stars and light up shoes? I'm not. That's when you get grown and you want to wear spiked boots and a turtleneck, then you do that. It's hot as hell out here, but if that's how you feel, then I support that wholeheartedly, because I don't ever want them to look back at me and be like, if I had been one way their whole life and then waited for them to get a certain age and then flipped it, they wouldn't know me at all. And I made that decision very early on, like, you know what, you might as well know the real me and deal with it. Formulate a perception, like, whatever it is that people are going to tell you about whatever they see when they look at me, you know me. So that's going to debunk any kind of negativity that you're going to encounter out in the world. As far as like their exposure and explanations, like I'll tell you a funny story. When my son was 2, a friend of mine came down from DC, and I hadn't seen him since undergrad, and I had started his locks. They were about an inch long, and when I saw him, they were waved like almost in the middle of his stomach. And you know, brothers in DC, they'll kiss your face. You know, they hug their friends. Like me and Ashanti were close, so it was no big deal. So he's at the door, and we're going through all these, I haven't seen you in years type motions. Where's the baby? Here comes diaper. And I mean literally diaper and socks. You don't kiss my mama. Mama only kisses mama or babe. And he was serious, like, I don't know what you got playing, Blair, but this is not how it looks in my house. They've never known me to be any other way. When I get dressed, and like I said, it's been times when I've had those big like closet mirrors, I'm putting on my belt, putting on my socks, and my son is putting on his belt and putting on his socks. And you know, Angie's, can you zip my dress and tie my band? I'll stop, I'll put on my tie. We're all standing there in the mirror. There's no, this is a norm too. They're just clothes. It is not going to negate the fact that you fall, I'm gonna have to clean you up, I'm gonna have to coddle you, I'm still your mama. In this whole tie, with this whole fade, and these whole Stacy's, and that's fine.
So I went to an event earlier this year at U of H, and there was a young lady there that had played like professional football. And growing up, she had only like sisters, and growing up, all her sisters had played football together. And she said one day they was driving by a park, and her niece saw like a bunch of guys playing football. And for her, that was taboo, because to the niece, football was a girl's sport. And how dare boys play football, because all her life, the little girl had only saw other girls play football. She had never seen a guy play football. So to her, football was a woman's sport. And that's interesting that how kids and us as individuals can create a norm or foster a norm that people do not consider. And for us, that is our reality, that is our normalcy. And people don't take that in consideration because it's not what theirs look like every day. And to go into what you said a little bit earlier, so when I first came out, well, I don't want to say when I first came out, I had a cousin way back when, well, my cousin's still around, he lives in DC now, but he took me to get my first HIV test. And the reason why he took me is because way back then there was this, well, it still exists, don't nobody go get on it. It was called BGC Live. And I remember like finding one of my cousin's friends on there, and he had like this picture of him and my cousin on there, and I was like, oh my fucking God. So that was like my first like confirmation that my cousin was gay. And so me and my cousin started having like conversations about this, and it was interesting because at the time my cousin went to Texas A&M, and I went to Prairie View. So he would like pick me up on his way back into like Houston, and like we would get food and stuff like that, and he would drop me off at my grandma's, and then on the way back, you know, he would pick me up, and like we would go back to school, like all of this. And I remember one day we were going back into the city,